Hey everyone, so it's another pre-recorded Mentoring Monday. I love doing them live. Sunday evening, Sunday the 3rd of April 2022. You'll be receiving this on Monday the 4th of April 2022. And I am scheduled to be on mummy duty. I have a little girl at home who's not feeling 100%. But I wanted to stay true to my commitment to you guys and check in with you every Monday with a little mentoring session. And I don't know if today's really a mentoring session or really me just reflecting on my 13-year anniversary. So Monday, the 4th of April 2022 is my 13-year wedding anniversary. Not only that, that reminds me that I have been teaching yoga for over 13 years. I started teaching in the September of 2008 and I got married in the April of 2009. And it always is like, I can't believe I've been married for 13 years and I can't believe I've been teaching yoga for 13 years. And sometimes it's really useful to pause and reflect, because we can always be about like moving forward and how I can improve things, and maybe like, why aren't I here yet? Whereas if you just pause and reflect and think of all the things you've got right, because there will be things that you've got right, and also all the mistakes you've made, and the mistakes I've made have been so valuable. So I'm going to go right back to when I signed up to be a yoga teacher, because this is quite an important thing. Like, I've just had weekend 6 of my 300-hour yoga teacher training course. It's over an 8-month period, and we are seriously beginning to talk about, are you going to teach? Who's thinking about teaching? And always within a teacher training course, there's a real mix of responses. Those that know they want to teach, know that they're going to move and hopefully move into being like a full-time yoga teacher. There's those that are a little bit unsure, going to give it a go and see where it's going to go for them. And then there's those that are like, I don't think teaching is for me. I love the course, I love learning about yoga, and I want to keep it like that. And I was definitely in that middle group. I loved yoga. I love yoga. I still love yoga. 13 years later, I still love yoga. That's important, by the way, guys. Very important. I love yoga, and I was a teacher. I was a school teacher. Fun facts about Amy. It's not just my 13-year wedding anniversary. I went to music college. I started off with an ambition to be an orchestral viola player. I laugh now because I cannot believe how different my life is from what I set out to do when I was 18. But I went to music college, and to be honest, like, nerves crippled me when it came to performing, particularly performing solo. And I think I got into my second year at music college and was just like, this isn't a life, in terms of, if I want to be a professional musician and it's so stressful for me to perform, this isn't what I meant to do. And that was really crushing for me, really crushing for me. And I stuck it out at music college and I finished my degree, but I knew I wasn't going to go on and be a professional musician. So I went straight, I turned 21 and I went straight into training to be a secondary school music teacher. And by the age of 22, I was fully qualified and I was teaching. And I actually taught secondary school music education for 12 years. And for a chunk of that time, for the latter part of my career as a music teacher, I actually ran the Cornwall Skip PGCE course. I set it up and I trained music teachers. So to say that I have always been a teacher and I've always been a trainer is an understatement. I'm a teacher, definitely one of my archetypes. So I was a full-time, when I started training to be a yoga teacher, I was a full-time secondary school music teacher. I was a head of faculty, and it wasn't that I didn't like my job. In fact, I loved my job as a music teacher, and believe it or not, I really loved the interaction with teenage children. That's one of the things I miss today, although my children are rapidly growing up and I will own my own teenage children soon. But I think I was sensing, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I was sensing that my life would change if I had children. And also, you know, I'd now been a school teacher for 8, 9, 10 years, and I think I had a bit of an itch to try something different. And I also had this real passion for yoga, and like so many people who sign up to a yoga teacher training course, initially it is just curiosity, let's see where it goes. So I started teaching yoga and I loved it. And once I got to the end of my course, I was now married and I've been teaching for a couple of years, and I knew I wanted a family, and it just made real sense for me to immediately go into train in pre and postnatal yoga. So I finished my British Wheel of Yoga 500-hour yoga teacher training course, and I went straight into a pre and postnatal yoga teacher training course. Hadn't yet had children. That was one of the best things I ever did. I got a specialism. Sometimes you hear a lot about have a niche. You've got to have a niche. And I do agree, like having clear messaging, you know, is really important. But if you're going to see, as I try and summarize the last 13 years of my yoga career, that my niches have shifted and diversified. But having that specialism really was such a great strength. I wasn't just teaching yoga, I was able to add pregnancy yoga and mum and baby yoga into my classes. So I started off kind of going part-time as a school teacher. I dropped my hours as a school teacher and started teaching yoga. That is one of my top tips for those of you who are wanting to have a career change, want to give up their job tomorrow and be a yoga teacher. Hey, I'm with you. I'm on your team. I'm here to help you. Let's do it. That is always how I feel about this. But you'd never want to be in a place where you're desperate or you're grasping to make money or it's stressful. And that is one of the things I really, really have got right over the last 13 years. I have never done anything because I thought, oh, it will make me lots of money, I'll do that. It has always been a byproduct of following my passion, following my intuition, and, you know, staying in my zone of genius, staying with what I'm good at. I haven't done arm balancing or inversion workshops. I'm not so good at those things, but I am a really experienced teacher and a really experienced trainer, and it's no coincidence that 13 years later I had this large, yoga business that trains yoga teachers and also offers training for yoga teachers. It's no coincidence. That's my zone of genius. So focus on your zone of genius, your passion, and your passion is going to change. Your niche is going to change, and that's totally okay. Don't do anything because you think this is going to make me loads of money. Do it from a sense of service, from a sense of passion, and that the money will come. So if you have an ambition to be a full-time yoga teacher, it's totally possible. It is totally possible without burning out. But don't give up the day job until you know you're ready, because if all of a sudden you're completely dependent on generating income from teaching yoga, it can become stressful, and then you lose the passion, you lose the desire to serve. So I'm always like, when people say to me, oh, I really want to be a full-time yoga teacher, I want to give up my job, I'm like, okay, can you drop some hours? Can you make space? Can you make space for your yoga business to grow? And then you can grow your yoga business and continue to make space. And then there comes a point where your yoga business, your income is secure. You know it's coming in, it's consistent, that you can let the other job go. So that's one of my top tips for those of you who want to make teaching yoga your full-time job. So here's something I did wrong, but learned a huge amount from. I had this major ambition to have a yoga studio. I think it's like it's really, really common, you know, you train to be a yoga teacher and then you rent a few village halls and they're a bit cold and a bit dusty and you're thinking, if only I had control over this, I want my own space. So I signed on the dotted line on a studio which wasn't particularly big. It was in an area in Cornwall called Red Roof. You know, nothing wrong with the area, but majority of my students were driving into it. It was not a huge space. I could get about 12 people in. COVID wasn't a thing. This is going back, when is this? I'm trying to think now. It was, oh yes, I know, 2011. There's a reason why I know exactly when this was. And there was a car park. You had to pay and you had to walk down a dark alleyway to get it. Bear in mind, I had a specialism in pre and postnatal yoga and I was teaching evening pregnancy yoga classes. So already it was a bit of a problem because there was friction getting to the studio. You had to pay to park, you had to walk down a dark alleyway, you had to drive in unless you were living in the Red Roof area. It was also opposite a gym that played loud music. And it was a bit of a challenge in the evening classes. But I signed on the dotted line because I wanted it. And as I signed, I also got pregnant. And first time round in my pregnancies, you know, you're like, I can do this. I can have a yoga studio. I can grow a baby. I'll have my baby and grow my yoga business. I learned so much from that yoga space that I had. I had it for 18 months. And I didn't make any money, I didn't lose any money. I literally broke even. And really what sustained me was I was on maternity leave from my job as a school teacher and my maternity pay. So I'd used effectively my maternity pay as an opportunity to make it work. But it wasn't working. It wasn't making me money. It wasn't in the right area, right space. And the gym opposite was a problem. And you have to, one of the things to be sustainable, to sustain teaching, you know, being self-employed for any period of time, to be honest, is you have to let go of things that you may be seriously attached to that aren't serving you. The other challenge that I had with this studio was it was 20 to 25 minutes away from where I lived, and having a child was one of the best things. You don't have to have a child, by the way, but having my first son was gave me such clarity, because I'm like, you know what? I do not want to drive 25 minutes to teach a yoga class, because then that 1 hour yoga class is 1 hour teaching and a 50-minute drive, 2 hours away from my son. 2 hours away from my son. So it really honed in that I wanted to teach locally to where I was. Around that time as well, someone had asked me to cover one of their classes. And I said, yes, yeah, no problem. And I hadn't asked them what they were going to charge me, what they were going to pay me. And it got to the day of the class, I thought, I just better check in with this teacher, you know, what's going rate for a cover teacher. And it was £15. And I'm not saying £15 for an hour, you know, and this is going back, you know, 10 plus years ago. It's a small sum of money. But again, it was a 20-minute drive. I had an 8-month-old baby. And I was just like, do you know what? For £15, I don't want to do it. I did it because I'd agreed to it and we should have spoken about things first. But it made me create what's my minimum hourly rate that I will, you know, go out and work for. So that was really powerful as well. It made me think about the money. It made me think about the energy exchange, even though it still wasn't the main driver as why I was doing things, but it made me think about the energy exchange. So I'd let go of my yoga studio that hadn't made me any money. And I was like, right, I'm just going to teach close to home. And this is where I fell into the St Agnes Miners and Mechanics Institute, which I live in Perranporth, and St Agnes is about 5 to 10 minute drive. It's the next cove round, for those of you that know Cornwall. And it was the small little coastal village, and I was a bit like, I don't think many people are going to come to classes here, but it's close to home, I don't really care. What I hadn't factored in was St Agnes was really central to lots of other places. It was a really nice village with nice cafe and easy parking, and it was one of the best decisions I made. At this point now, I was due also to go back to school as a secondary school teacher, and it was when I resigned from this job. I was teaching in a school that was a 40-minute drive away from where I lived, and I was just like, well, by the time I put my son into childcare, I had my darling golden retriever Wilbur. Then he's no longer with me, but he would have had to go to doggy daycare. The drive, I calculated, I think after a day's work I was going to make £40, and I was like, you know what, I can go out and teach a yoga class and make £40 and be with my son when he's very little. I did have a huge advantage. I had my mum and dad who did childcare for me, free childcare for me, and I am under no illusion the difference that has made in me being able to go back to being a full-time yoga teacher after having my first child, leaving my job as a music teacher and grow my business, because it is so hard to make your yoga classes sustainable, profitable, grow your business and cover the cost of childcare. I hear that, women, for those of you that don't have childcare nearby. So if you are in that situation, like, have you got any friends around you where you could do like a childcare swap day or something like that, so you can go out and teach and you're not having to cover the cost of childcare, because that is so tough. So then things just potter along for a bit. I'm teaching pregnancy yoga, mum and baby yoga, vinyasa, and I don't think I was teaching yin yoga then, but a bit of yin and restorative. And I had my second baby, and she was only 4 or 5 months old, and at the Miners and Mechanics Institute an opportunity came along to set up a small yoga studio within the building. And listen to that word, opportunity. If you are, whether you're teaching one class or whether it's your full-time job, I don't really care. You are not just a yoga teacher, you're a yoga boss. You're an entrepreneur, a solo entrepreneur. You have an element of your income that is self-employed. So you've got two hats. You've got the yoga teacher hat and you've got this entrepreneur hat. And as an entrepreneur, you are keeping your ear to the ground and your eyes out for opportunity that allows you to serve and spread the light that is yoga. And this was a really wonderful opportunity, even though I had a really young baby, and I took it. And it was really powerful opportunity, because I had this small studio and then another space within the MMI came available. I had ended up, Lucy was only 10 months old, and I ended up with 2 studios. It wasn't planned, it was opportunity that I seized. And I had full timetables and teachers renting the studios, and it was really working, because I adopted the model of, instead of paying teachers to run classes for me, I rented the spaces out, and the rent from the teachers largely covered my rent. So I effectively had these 2 gorgeous spaces and very low overhead in terms of my costs, which meant I could be really creative, try a workshop, add another class in here or there. There was very little risk to me. And I still had my mum and dad providing childcare. So it was that support to grow. And really, things kind of rumbled on like that. And then in 2016, 2017, I got the itch again, I get an itch frequently, to try something new. And it was to start offering training courses. And I think, yoga teachers, once you've been teaching for a while, you kind of hit a ceiling. There's only a certain amount of classes you can run. You've got the energy for, you've got, the desire to run. And you hit that ceiling, and you've been doing this for a while, and you're thinking, well, how can I, expand what I'm offering? People were asking me to run toddler yoga classes in other areas, and I was like, I can't do anymore. but I could train teachers to teach pregnancy, mum and baby, postnatal and toddler yoga, and then they could go and teach these classes. So I started running in person. I had a 5-day, it's all different now, 5-day pregnancy yoga class and a 5-day mum and baby and toddler yoga training course. And in person, largely training people in the Southwest. I absolutely loved it. I remember the women on my first 5-day pregnancy yoga course. I remember the first day teaching it and in the evening packing up and just thinking, this is it. This is what I am, this is my zone of genius. I love training. I love creating curriculums. I love training people. I love empowering people. I love sharing my knowledge and empowering people to then go out and create their own classes and courses. So again, we're rumbling on, and I've got my specialist courses and my classes, and people start asking me around 2018, 2019, Amy, you're going to run a yoga teacher training course. And I was a bit resistant, I won't lie. I was like, oh, I don't feel ready for that yet. And then I don't know what it was. Do you know what? I do know. It was Jane Craddock who I run my yoga teacher training course with, and I was chatting to her, and she's like, come on, let's do it. And we ran our first yoga teacher training course, our 300-hour foundation teacher training course in 2020. Well, we all know about 2020, don't we? Here I am, March 2020. I have 2 studios, thriving yoga classes, specialist in-person pregnancy, mum and baby and toddler yoga training courses, an in-person foundation yoga teacher training course. Everything's in person. I am, as about technology minded as, my mum is. I had an iZettle machine and that was it, you cash or backs. COVID struck, quarter of the way into my first yoga teacher training course. I'd never taught online before. I didn't even take online payments. This is one of my biggest messages to you all. This is not a brag, but I want you to know that my business has steadily grown since April 2020. I have diversified, I've gone online, I've taken some of my classes online, I've taken my specialist courses online, I've made my foundation yoga teacher training course a hybrid course, so it can be done online or with an in-person mix if you like. I've got some on-demand content. I cannot believe I've done this. I know I've talked about this before, never say never, but I could have easily let COVID have an impact on my business and just roll with it. I could have just gone, I'll wait for this to pass. And I remember in those early days when we didn't know how long this was going to last and there wasn't any talk about government help for self-employed people. And I had a bit of a tearful conversation on the phone to my mum about, paying my bills, paying my mortgage, and she offered to help, bless her. And I remember just coming off the phone of that conversation and thinking, I have spent the last over 10 years of my life creating this. There is no way, excuse my language, no way that I am letting COVID take that away from me. And I took action. And this is another message I want for you to take away from this huge ramble today, Mental Monday, is anything is possible if you truly, truly commit and take action. I have been able to grow my business and I have lofty ambitions to continue to grow my business in this online sphere. But I have gone back to some in-person stuff. So, and this is where I am today. I no longer have the studios. I did return them to the MMI, so they're back within the charity of the building, and I just rent them. And that's because I am now 60% online, 40% in person, maybe even a bit less in person, a bit more online. So my takeaways from this ramble is build steadily without stress. Okay, use friends and family if you can for childcare, if you need childcare. Follow your passions, not the money. The money will come if you stay in your zone of genius and focus on serving. Don't get attached to things that aren't working. Be prepared to say, this ain't working, let's try something else. And, you know, don't make assumptions. I assumed the MMI wasn't going to be a great place for me to run classes because it was a little coastal village. I was wrong. I had assumed pre-COVID lockdown that technology wasn't for me. And I was so wrong. And it could have been really easy to assume that the impact of COVID would have had a detrimental effect on my yoga business. And it's been the opposite. And I just want to conclude with, I'm not special. I'm not different to you. I am identical to you. I am human. You are human. If I can do this, if I can have a YouTube channel, online courses, take online payment, oh my God, you can, okay? And it's just, honestly, it's the mind, it's a mindset. And I just feel like really grateful actually to the practice of yoga, which I truly believe helps me dig deep sometimes and challenge the noise of the mind stuff. So that is a pretty long ramble, a potted version of my teaching career the last 13 years. I haven't always made money. I have had very small classes. I'm trying to think, have I ever had any no-shows? I don't think I've ever had any no-shows, but I've had a couple of classes where one person's turned up. But you know what? I've remained consistent. I've remained passionate about yoga. I continue to practice. I continue to study. I continue to learn. And I continue to adapt and focus on that thing that originally gave me that fire in my belly, which was yoga. I love yoga. It's changed my life. I'm just going to share that light with other people.